The snow had begun at dawn, thin at first, like scattered dust shaken loose from the gray sky. But as the minutes passed, the quiet dust swelled into heavy, tumbling flakes that blanketed the roads and swallowed the edges of the world. By 6:00 a.m., the city was unrecognizable. Streets emptied, cars buried, windows glazed with winter's breath. And into that frozen silence moved a child. Lily was only 3, maybe 4 at most, her tiny frame wrapped in a faded pink jacket that had lost most of its warmth long ago. Her blonde curls clung in damp spirals to her rosy cheeks. Her feet, bare against the biting ground, left small, trembling imprints that disappeared almost instantly under the falling snow. She walked because she had no choice. Because waking up that morning, she had found her mother still on the floor, unmoving. Her voice came in soft, fragile whispers. "Help, Mommy, help." No one heard her over the wind. No one saw her tiny form swallowed by the storm. She stumbled, her body shivering so hard she could barely stay upright. She didn't know which way to go. She didn't know street names or house numbers. But in her memory, there was always one house, the warm-looking one with the golden porch light she could see from her bedroom window. And so she walked toward that light, the one thing that felt safe. At the intersection, the snow had piled high. One of her feet sank deep and she wavered dangerously. A car suddenly turned the corner, headlights slicing through the white haze. The SUV skidded, the driver fighting for control. Lily froze, a tiny statue in the middle of chaos. At the last heartbeat, she dropped to her knees. The car missed her by inches. Her breath came out fast and shallow. Her small chest rose and fell in frightened bursts, but she made no sound. She simply pushed herself back onto wobbly feet and continued walking. 2 more blocks. The golden porch light grew brighter with every desperate step. When she reached the house, she climbed the wooden steps slowly, one foot, then the other, her body trembling so violently she could hardly lift her knee. The porch roof shielded her from the falling snow for the first time since she had left home. And then her legs gave out. She leaned her entire weight against the front door, eyes fluttering closed, her lashes tipped in frost, her lips a fatting purple. Then the door opened. A man stood in the doorway, tall, composed, dressed in a dark coat and holding a sleek black briefcase. His hair was damp from stepping outside just moments earlier, and his brows pulled together in a split-second confusion as he looked down at the small child collapsing toward him. Daniel Ross, CEO of Ross Holdings, froze. His world shifted. "Hey," his voice cracked as he dropped the briefcase and dove forward. He caught her before she could hit the porch floor, her tiny body limp in his arms. "My God, sweetheart, what happened?" Her eyelids fluttered. "Sir," her voice was paper thin, "my mom didn't wake up." His breath hitched. "What?" he whispered, barely able to process the words. "Where is she?" She didn't get up. I called her. I called and Mommy didn't get up." A tremor moved through Daniel's chest, sharp, haunting. The way she said it, the fear in her voice, the memory it triggered. He swallowed hard, the color draining from his face. "Show me," he whispered. And without waiting another second, he carried her inside, grabbed his coat, wrapped it around her little trembling body, and strode back out into the cold. Her tiny fingers clung to his collar, the only warmth she had left. They moved quickly through the storm, Daniel carrying her in one arm, steady and protective, her head buried in the crook of his neck. "Where is your home, Lily?" he asked. She lifted one freezing hand and pointed weakly down the street. "That way." He tightened his hold on her. "I've got you," he murmured. "I'm not leaving." When they reached the old apartment building, Daniel didn't hesitate. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, snow melting down his coat sleeves. Lily pointed at a door slightly ajar. 302. Daniel pushed the door open fully. The cold hit him like a punch. No heat, no lights, frost on the floorboards. The air smelled faintly of metal and sickness. And then he saw her. A woman lay collapsed near the kitchen, blonde hair spread like a pale halo around her head, her body curled inward as if trying to stay warm. Her clothes were thin, too thin for the winter cold. Her lips trembled faintly. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, trying to wriggle out of Daniel's arms. But he reached her first. He dropped to his knees beside the unconscious woman. His fingers found her neck, searching. There. A pulse, thin, rapid, unsteady, but real. Daniel exhaled shakily. For one heart-stopping moment, the apartment wasn't the apartment. He wasn't the CEO of a massive corporation. He was a boy again, kneeling on a cold floor beside the lifeless body of his mother, begging her to wake up. He clenched his jaw, forcing the memory back into its cage. Not again. Not this time. He scooped the woman into his arms, lifting her as carefully as he could. She was frighteningly light. Exhaustion clung to her body like a physical weight. "Stay with me," he murmured, though she couldn't hear him. "Don't leave your daughter. Don't make her face what I did." He carried her to the small bedroom, laid her gently on the bed, and found blankets, thin but usable. He wrapped her tightly, layering them one by one. He searched the room, found eucalyptus oil, and rubbed warmth back into her limbs, massaging it into fingers that were almost numb. Lily climbed onto the bed and held her mother's hand, tears streaking down her cold, reddened cheeks. "Mommy, please get up." The woman stirred faintly. Her lips parted, voice cracked and barely audible. "Lily, baby." Daniel's throat tightened. He stood quickly and called his private physician. "Emergency, severe hypothermia, fever, dehydration. Bring fluids, bring everything, now." 20 minutes later, the apartment filled with movement, professionals rushing in, assessing, treating. Daniel stood by the door, arms crossed, watching every detail with sharp precision, refusing to sit or relax until the doctor finally said, "She'll make it. She needs rest, warmth, and food. But you got to her in time." Daniel nodded, though relief didn't fully settle. He looked at the woman, Mia, and then at the child curled beside her. Lily's eyes were heavy with exhaustion, fear, and the remnants of bravery too big for her tiny body. Daniel knelt beside her. "You saved her," he said softly. "You were so brave." Lily blinked up at him. "Mommy's not gonna go away, right?" Daniel's voice cracked. "No," he said, tucking a curl behind her ear. "Not if I can help it." And as the storm raged outside and the room warmed slowly around them, something shifted in Daniel's chest. It wasn't pity. It wasn't obligation. It was the beginnings of attachment, quiet, unexpected, and powerful. And it started with a child who walked barefoot in the snow, and a woman who had fought silently for too long. Something new had begun in that small, freezing apartment. And Daniel Ross didn't yet know how deeply it would change his life. The apartment had warmed since morning, just enough for the frost on the floorboards to melt into small, shimmering droplets. The heater hummed softly, creating a cocoon of fragile comfort inside the room that hours ago had felt like a frozen shell. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same. Mia slept deeply, her body finally surrendering to the care it had been denied for too long. Daniel stood by the window with his coat still on, watching her from the corner of his eye. He didn't know how long he'd been standing there. He only knew he couldn't leave. Not yet. Not while she lay there fighting her way back to consciousness. Not while Lily curled beside her mother with a blanket pulled up to her chin. He didn't know these two. They weren't connected to him. But leaving felt wrong in a way he couldn't explain. The doctor cleared his throat softly behind him. "She'll be okay, but exhaustion that severe doesn't come from one night. She's been overworking herself, probably for months." Daniel nodded, jaw tight. The doctor lowered his voice. "CEO or not, Daniel, this is poverty-level fatigue. She's been surviving, not living. That word surviving stung. He had seen it before. He had lived it before. The doctor packed up his equipment and left quietly, the door clicking shut behind him. Daniel exhaled through his nose, rubbing his hand over the back of his neck. He wasn't sure why it bothered him so much. The way Mia looked lying there, thinner than she should be, cheeks hollowed from stress, hands calloused from too much work. Or the way Lily clung to him earlier with a desperate trust he hadn't expected from a child. But it did bother him, deeply. He turned when he heard the rustle of blankets. Lily sat up, her curls messily framing her face, eyes half-lidded with sleep. She blinked at him. "You're still here," she whispered softly. Daniel smiled faintly. "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." Lily slid off the bed and padded toward him, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy sleeps too much when she's tired," she said, "but she always wakes up." Daniel crouched down to her level. "She will, she just needs time." Lily nodded solemnly. Then, without hesitation, she lifted her arms for him to pick her up. The action stunned him. He froze, unsure for the first time in hours. But her little arms didn't lower. They only waited, small, trembling, trusting. So he lifted her gently. She wrapped her arms around his neck immediately, her cheek pressing against his shoulder as if she'd done it 100 times before. Daniel swallowed hard, one hand supporting her back. "You feel safe," she murmured sleepily. His breath caught. His mother had said the same thing to him once, before her heart gave out. It had haunted him for years, that final contradiction, but hearing it now felt different, newly tender, healing. "Let's get you something warm to drink," he whispered. He carried her into the kitchen, careful not to wake Mia with the creak of the floorboards. The apartment was small, but Daniel moved through it with ease, adjusting things without thinking, closing windows that let in drafts, tightening loose knobs, picking up scattered toys. Lily watched him work, holding her teddy bear tightly. "Do you fix everything?" she asked. Daniel smirked softly. "I try." "Mommy tries too," Lily said. "But sometimes things stay broken and she just says, 'It's okay, we'll make it work.'" Those words, "we'll make it work," hit him harder than he expected. They reminded him too much of survival, of stretching thin moments into endurance, of pretending it didn't hurt. "Your mommy is strong," he said quietly. Lily nodded proudly. "She works so hard. Sometimes she forgets to eat, so I give her crackers." Daniel's chest tightened. "And she reads me bedtime stories," Lily continued, "even when she's too tired, and she hugs me and says she's sorry she's tired." Daniel felt something inside him shift again. He opened a carton and poured warm milk into a small cup, handing it to Lily. She took it with both hands and sipped, her eyes closing. "Thank you," she whispered. "Any time," he whispered back. She looked at him closely, as if examining something invisible around him. "You talk soft," Lily said. Daniel blinked, soft. "Like you don't want to scare people," she said plainly. The observation made his heart twist. He had learned to speak quietly after his mother died. Loudness had frightened him then. Quietness had become his shield. It wasn't intentional. It was leftover grief he'd never shaken. "I suppose I do," Daniel replied. Lily cuddled into him again, milk finished. "I like it," she said. He felt her small body relax, and moments later she was asleep in his arms. He stared down at her, stunned by how naturally his arms folded around her tiny frame, as if he'd been holding her for years, as if she belonged there. He carried her gently back to the bedroom and tucked her beside Mia. He stared at Mia for a long moment. Her breathing had steadied. Her face, though exhausted, looked peaceful in sleep. Golden hair spilled across the pillow like strands of sunlight. He wasn't sure why, but he whispered it aloud. "You're strong too," he said softly, "more than you should have to be." Then he stepped into the hallway and dialed his executive team. In the calmest voice he had, he said, "I want immediate welfare revisions for all night shift employees. Start with Elmwood, today." His team scrambled to respond. Daniel didn't care. His mind replayed Mia's collapsed body on the floor. Her worn clothes. Her empty fridge. Her small daughter walking barefoot in the snow. Not one of them should have happened. And he would fix it, even if she never knew. But 2 days later, Mia finally woke fully. The room hummed with warmth. Sunlight trickled through the curtains. She blinked, confused. The last thing she remembered was collapsing, and Lily's voice echoing through fog. And then warmth. A voice she didn't know. Strong arms carrying her. Now she found herself lying neatly in bed, tucked beneath layers of blankets. A humidifier whispered beside her. The IV stand was still there, empty now but proof that something serious had happened. Her heart leapt. Lily. Before she could swing her legs over the bed, the door opened. Lily rushed inside. "Mommy," she cried, climbing onto the bed and throwing her arms around her. Mia held her tightly, tears flooding her eyes. "Baby, oh my God, you're okay, you're okay." Lily nodded, beaming. "And you are too, Daniel fixed you." Mia froze slightly. "Daniel." A soft knock sounded at the bedroom door. When she looked up, she saw him. Daniel stood there, tall, composed, sleeves rolled up, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he had been running his hands through it for hours. He stepped inside quietly. "You scared all of us," he said gently. His voice. It was warm. Grounded. Not commanding the way CEOs often sounded. She'd heard enough corporate customers at her night job to know. His voice felt like steadiness. Mia swallowed, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm sorry. This must have been such an inconvenience." "No," he said immediately. "It was. But my daughter." "She's safe," he interrupted softly, "because she's brave and because you taught her that." The sigh that escaped Mia came from somewhere deep in her bones, months of tension releasing at once. She sank back against the pillows. "I can't believe that you collapsed," he asked gently. "You were past exhaustion, Mia, anyone would have." His tone wasn't scolding. It was understanding. But Mia still felt the weight of embarrassment. "I didn't even know who helped me," she whispered. But Lily kept talking about someone who didn't leave. Daniel gave a small, hesitant smile. "I'm the someone." Mia looked at him fully then. The man was striking, not just in appearance but presence. His eyes held intelligence and something deeper, something tired, yet kind. The kind of eyes that had seen pain but learned to be gentle because of it. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. "I don't know how to repay something like this." "You don't need to repay anything," he said. Lily tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy," he fixed your hands too. Daniel blinked. "Your hands." Mia looked at him, confused, until she realized her fingers no longer burned with cold or ache. He warmed them, massaged circulation back into them, brought them life again. Heat rose to her cheeks. "You didn't have to do that," she murmured. "I did," he said simply, as if it were obvious. There was something unspoken between them, a delicate string pulling their worlds closer. Later, when Mia insisted she could walk, she tried standing. Her legs trembled. Daniel stepped forward instinctively, steadying her elbows. "Easy," he murmured. "Your body's still catching up." She leaned into him for a moment she didn't intend, a moment that felt like falling into warmth after years of cold. Their eyes met. She looked away first, flustered. He didn't move. "Mia," he said softly, "you don't have to do everything alone." The words hit a wound she didn't know was visible. Her lips parted, a quiet breath escaping. Daniel withdrew his hand slowly, as if careful not to startle a fragile thing. "Sit," he said gently. "Rest. Lily and I will make breakfast." No, I can't let you." He smiled just slightly. "It's only eggs. I think I can handle that." Lily cheered. "Daniel makes warm milk better than Mommy." Mia laughed quiet, surprised at herself. Maybe she was still weak. Maybe the moment was too tender. Or maybe Daniel truly did soften rooms just by standing in them. Whatever it was, she let him go without arguing. In the kitchen, he cooked with Lily perched on the counter, swinging her legs happily. Mia watched from the doorway. Daniel cracked eggs with precision, folded them gently in a pan, wiped spills before they formed, moved with focus, calm, steady, intentional. He cooked like someone who needed tasks to quiet the noise inside him. Lily narrated everything. Daniel fixed our heater. Daniel made Mommy warm again. Daniel said I'm brave like a superhero. And each time, Daniel only smiled softly. Mia hadn't seen a man smile like that in years, quiet, sincere, not asking for anything in return. Her heart tugged. Not with romance. Not yet. With gratitude. With safety. With something she didn't have a name for. Something that felt like the beginning of change. And as the three of them sat down at the small table, with cracked edges and mismatched chairs, Daniel noticed the tiny details of their life. The taped-up corners of Lily's favorite book. The fridge humming unevenly. The patched knees of Mia's jeans. The weary softness in her eyes when she looked at her daughter. He felt something swell in his chest. A sense of responsibility he couldn't explain. A desire to protect them, both of them, quietly, gently, without intrusion. The slow burn feeling began there. Not in stolen glances. Not in heated tension. In a simple kitchen. At a wobbly table. With a tired mother and a little girl wearing mismatched socks. Daniel didn't know it yet. Neither did Mia. But something was already forming. Something warm. Something patient. Something inevitable. The days following Mia's collapse unfolded like a quiet transformation. Daniel did not announce himself. He didn't arrive with flowers or grand gestures. He simply showed up. In small, thoughtful ways that felt less like intrusion and more like breath entering a room that had forgotten what air felt like. The first day he brought groceries, simple things, but enough to fill their once nearly empty fridge. Mia protested softly, but he shook his head. "You need energy," he said, "and Lily needs food that isn't vending machine crackers." There was no judgment in his tone. Only care. Mia didn't argue again. The second day, he repaired the broken cabinet door, fixed a loose step in the hallway, and tightened every wobbly screw he could find. Mia watched him from the doorway, unsure how to feel. "You don't have to fix everything," she whispered. Daniel looked up at her with a faint smile. "I know I don't," he said. "I just want to." The words sank deeper than they should have. By the third day, Lily had attached herself to him like a shadow. She trailed behind him everywhere, small footsteps echoing his. When he sat, she climbed into his lap. When he spoke, she listened with bright eyes. When he left, she stood at the door, waiting until he disappeared from sight. "Do you like Daniel?" Mia asked one night while brushing Lily's hair. Lily nodded vigorously. "He keeps me warm and he's gentle." Mia paused. Gentle. Yes, that was exactly it. The world had never been gentle to Mia, or to Lily. But Daniel moved through their lives like someone who didn't want to disturb anything fragile. The slow warmth of it surprised her. One early evening, after finishing repairs on the squeaky living room door, Daniel glanced at the clock. "I should go," he said quietly. "You both need rest." Mia nodded, Thank you again for everything." He hesitated near the door. His hand hovered over the knob. He didn't turn it yet. "Mia," he said softly. She looked at him, heart quickening for reasons she didn't fully understand. "You didn't deserve any of what you've been carrying alone." The words made her chest tighten. He continued, voice low and steady. "I don't know how you survived as long as you did, but I'm glad Lily came to me. Glad I could help, glad you're still here." Mia looked down, unsure how to hold the weight of his sincerity. Her voice was quiet. "I didn't know anyone saw me." Daniel swallowed. "I saw you," he murmured. "Even before that morning, I saw you." She didn't understand what he meant, not yet. But she felt it. A gentle shift in the air, a change in the way her world aligned itself with his presence. He left without another word, and the apartment felt strangely empty after the door closed. 3 days later, Daniel invited them to the park, the same small sanctuary where Lily had once fallen, and whispered that he felt safe. It was late afternoon. Golden light spilled across the sky. Leaves made a soft carpet under their feet. Lily ran ahead, hair streaming behind her as she headed straight for the swings. Mia and Daniel followed more slowly. Daniel stuffed his hands into the pockets of his coat. His shoulders were slightly hunched against the breeze, but his gaze was soft, gentle in a way only people with old wounds learn to be. "You look stronger," he said, glancing at her. Mia smiled faintly. "I feel stronger, thank you." "You don't have to thank me." "I think I do," she replied. "Not just for saving my life, but for what you've done since." Daniel looked ahead, watching Lily kick her legs as she swung higher and higher. "I'm not used to being thanked," he said, "not for the things that matter." Mia studied him quietly. There was so much she didn't know about this man, this powerful CEO who carried himself like someone who'd learned to walk gently through the world. "Daniel," she said softly, "you said something that I keep thinking about. You said you saw me before that morning." His breath caught. "Yes," he said, "I did." She waited. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then finally, quietly, "I came through your store once." Mia blinked. "The market." He nodded. "I didn't introduce myself, I just watched." She frowned, confused. "You were helping an elderly customer. He couldn't count his money correctly. You didn't rush him. You didn't make him feel embarrassed. You treated him like someone who mattered." Her chest tightened. She remembered that night. The man had been so frail, so apologetic. "You smiled at him," Daniel continued. "A real smile. I don't see many of those." Mia looked down. "I was just doing my job." "No," Daniel said softly. "You were being kind, and the world notices that even when you don't think it does." Silence settled again, soft but charged. Mia didn't know what to say. Daniel didn't know if he should say more. And then Lily called out from the swings. "Daniel, Mommy, look." She was kicking her legs hard, swinging high enough that her little shoes pointed straight toward the sky. Her laughter echoed through the park. Daniel smiled, wide enough to show dimples Mia hadn't noticed before. "You make her happy," Mia said suddenly, surprising even herself. Daniel's smile faded into something softer. "She deserves to be happy," he replied. "So do you." Those simple words cracked something inside Mia, something she'd kept shielded and quiet for years. Her throat tightened as she blinked away sudden tears she didn't expect. Daniel noticed. He didn't reach for her. He didn't touch her. He simply stood closer. So close that his warmth brushed her sleeve. So close that she could feel his presence anchoring her, without saying a word. It was the gentlest intimacy she had ever felt. As the sun dipped lower, Lily eventually tired, her little legs dragging as she trudged back toward them. Daniel scooped her up effortlessly, settling her on his hip. She rested her head on his shoulder, eyes drooping. "She's sleepy," Mia murmured. "She's comfortable," Daniel corrected softly. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck. "Daniel, will you stay for dinner?" she mumbled. Mia inhaled sharply. Daniel looked at Mia for permission. Her eyes softened. "Yes," she whispered, "stay." Something unspoken passed between them. Something warm, fragile, and deeply real. Dinner was simple: pasta with butter and herbs, garlic bread slightly burnt around the edges, and Lily proudly announcing that she helped stir the sauce. "I'm a chef." Daniel ate everything without complaint. Mia noticed. She also noticed how he always served Lily first, how he refilled her water glass without being asked, how he cut her garlic bread into tiny squares exactly the way Lily liked them, how he listened when Lily rambled about her stuffed animals. She noticed, and her heart softened. After dinner, Lily dragged out her small collection of storybooks. "Will you read to me?" she asked Daniel. Mia opened her mouth to suggest she read instead. But Daniel was already kneeling beside Lily, choosing the book with care. "Which one?" he asked. "This one," Lily said, handing him a worn copy of a fairy tale book with a torn spine. "Mommy always reads it, but today you do it. Mommy's still resting." Daniel smiled gently, "Then I'm honored." They settled onto the couch, Lily curled between them, Daniel holding the book like it was the most important thing in the room. His voice was calm, slow, soothing. Mia listened more to him than to the story. Lily fell asleep before he even reached the final page. Daniel closed the book quietly and rested it on the coffee table. Silence filled the apartment again, but not an empty silence. A warm one. Mia brushed a curl from Lily's forehead. She really likes you." Daniel swallowed. "And you?" he asked softly, barely above a whisper. "Do you like me here?" She lifted her gaze to him. Her heart beat somewhere deep in her throat. His eyes held no pressure, no expectation. Only gentle sincerity. And something unspoken beneath it. Slowly Mia nodded. "Yes," she said quietly, "I like you here." Daniel exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He didn't smile. He softened. Subtly. Almost imperceptibly. But enough that Mia felt it in her chest. "I don't want to overstep," he said. "Tell me when I am and I'll step back. He stopped. She waited. "I just don't want you to feel alone anymore." Her eyes shimmered. Mia didn't take his hand. She didn't lean into him. Instead, she whispered the truest thing she'd said in years. "I don't feel alone when you're here." Daniel closed his eyes briefly, the words hitting him with more force than she could ever know. When he opened them again, his voice was barely audible. "Good." That single word held worlds. He stood slowly, careful not to wake Lily. "I should go," he murmured. Mia walked him to the door quietly. Outside, the hallway was calm. The air smelled faintly of old wood and winter. Daniel lingered, not stepping through the doorway yet. "Mia," he said softly, "if you ever need anything, call me." She nodded. "I know." He hesitated. She hesitated. Neither moved. There was no kiss. No dramatic confessing of feelings. No sweeping embrace. Just the smallest, softest moment. Daniel reaching out to gently tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers grazed her cheek. Barely. Just enough to leave warmth behind. She closed her eyes for a breath. When she opened them, he stepped back. "Good night," he whispered. "Good night," she whispered back. He walked down the hall. She watched him until he turned the corner. Then she closed the door and rested her forehead against it. Her heart felt full. Warm. Alive. Daniel walked to his car with a slow, steady heartbeat. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. Something had begun. Something real. Something gentle. Something worth moving slowly for. And though neither of them said it aloud, both knew it. This was only the beginning.